You're listening to the Nature's Image Farm podcast. I'm your host, Greg Burns, and we're talking bees, homesteading, and the old-time ways. This episode is brought to you by HIVE wax-dipped equipment. No paint, no rot, no hassle. HIVE, built to endure. Now, on to the show. Well, good evening, gentlemen. Welcome everyone back to another Stream Team Beekeeping Chat, and the whole gang is together. Guys, I've missed you the last couple of weeks. How have you been?
We've been okay. It's all the same without you, Greg.
We've got to go through like introductions and stuff. I don't know who you are. I kind of recognize the voice though. So,
well, I appreciate you guys holding the fort down. It's been like we were saying earlier, the only thing that we can manage to for sure get to every single week is church on Sundays. Occasionally, if we're happen to be on vacation, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. Other than that, man, sometimes, you know, I love Wednesdays. Wednesdays are right in the middle of the week, and it's great for a lot of reasons. Mental resets, where are you at in the week, what course correction, all those kind of things. But it seems like no matter what, everything piles up, and sometimes you're just you've got too many mountains to climb late in the night on a Wednesday, and it's hard to be here. But I sure do enjoy it. I've missed seeing you guys and talking about bees and visiting with our listeners here. So it's definitely good to see you guys.
As busy as what you are, Greg, it sounds like it might be time to quit beekeeping.
Oh man,
see what I did there?
We're going to talk about that because I know every year we get into and we talk about fall burnout. And I think fall burnout, it can take different shapes, and its ferocity can sometimes change year by year. And I think this is definitely a pretty, I don't want to say disheartening time for a lot of us beekeepers, but I'd be lying if I were to say that little temptation thoughts of, maybe you should just lay your weapons down. Maybe you should quit. Maybe no one really cares anymore. Maybe you're not good enough. Maybe, you know, you don't have what it takes to make this thing work. Maybe your bees really aren't going to be there in the spring. Maybe you should just pack up and call it quits. I'd be a liar if I said I've never heard that voice in my head before. And I think if we're all honest, whether it's beekeeping, other things in life, we've probably heard that same voice too. And this is that time of the year where it seems to be about the loudest. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Is it time to throw in the towel? What do we mean by that? Are we quitting beekeeping? Are we quitting the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat? Are we quitting YouTube? Are we quitting raising queens? Are we what are we quitting? And sometimes the word quit has a negative connotation, but in other times, knowing your boundaries, knowing your limits, knowing what you can and can't do is pretty important, and that does mean quitting some things. And there are some things that we're going to be quitting, and we're going to hopefully talk about those later on tonight. Guys, I know it's been a couple weeks. A lot's changing with the weather, a lot's changing with the bees, and a lot seems to be, we would like to say things change, but I think in a lot of respects, the only constant seems to be change with a lot of these things here. Over the last couple of weeks, Brian, what's new for you up in Northeast Ohio?
Oh man, craziness. That's about all I can say. For the bees, though, I've got everything situated almost ready for the winter. And when I say winter, I mean we're sitting at, what is this, October 22nd, and pretty much things are just done up here. The Everything is extracted. All the honey that I had, that was all pulled and done. I got a bucket from my fall crop, so I was very pleased with that. You know, I can't complain about getting a bucket. The colonies, though, they all have weight on them to the point where I stepped back and was scratching my head, puzzled where they got that weight, because we had that, you know, we hit that dearth, and I thought basically everything as far as the flow that was out there was just annihilated, but that wasn't the case. So they've got weight on them. I've got feed on them though, and they are taking it. So I'm content with that, because they're probably, you know, and this is just a guess, because I'm not in no way going to break boxes at this time of the year up here. There's really no sense on looking in the brood area, but they're probably backfilling, you know, as they should. I've got treatments going on them, so you know that's good. I had 2 colonies that one of them got robbed out and annihilated. And then I had another one, that swarm that I had caught, that was just, I kept saying it's small, it's small. I just, when I was in the yard probably a week or so ago, well, it would be almost a week and a half ago, I cracked the lid and I looked at it and I thought, yep, Queen Mama, you're gone. So I pulled up the one frame that had most of the bees, found Queen Mama, and just did the old squish, and I just combined it over. So I've got the 16 colonies that are there, look really good. They all have weight. I'm content with them. So things are good. I think the only thing that I have left to do is I've been using those insulated inner covers for the winter time, but the bees, they have just chewed the heck out of them. That foam that is in that insulated inner is just annihilated. I mean, it's chewed up to the point that I would have to probably order new foam to put in those insulated inner covers.
Wow.
So if anybody's looking at getting those things, I might consider a different route. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a big old roll of Reflectix over there. I'm basically going to pop up my migratories that I got from you, and I'm just going to put a sheet of Reflectix under each of my lids. So, and that'll be enough. I mean, I just want a little bit of increased R value on the top. That way, if there's any cool, that water will be on the sides. So, but that's the last thing I got to do. I mean, that would take me, what, half an hour? So, but things are good. I mean, and I'm just going to ride it now until when I see that we're going to have freezing temps, and then the buckets are going to get flipped, and you know, I'll kind of play it by ear on when to pull those buckets off. But you know, it's looking good over there. I mean, I'm quite content. I even spent some time the other day cleaning up in the room. Got a lot of things situated that way, at least in the springtime, things are organized so that, you know, 8 frame equipment is on one shelf, 10 frames on another shelf, as far as like inners and bottom boards and things like that. So really got a lot of work done, I think, in the last week, just getting things situated, you know. So I can't complain, you know, for starting the year out with 3 colonies, and now I'll be going into the winter with 16. That, I mean, if I come out of the winter with 14 colonies, I'll be quite pleased. Quite pleased. So,
Well, sounds like
yeah,
got some light at the end of the tunnel for this year, and before you know it, you'll be anxiously anticipating maple pollen, maple bloom, kind of coming in there. But
I tell you, when I can walk out into the yard, whenever that'll be, March or April or whenever, Mother Nature is going to give us a spring up here, and I see that pollen coming in, and I look out and I see colonies that are alive, huge sigh of relief. Yeah. But
Awesome.
it's good. It's good though. Yeah.
Well, there's not really anything you can do now to make up for what you didn't do then. So it's just some fine adjustments and kind of go with it. I got some things that it seemed a little radical to do this late, but we'll talk about that. But before that, Bruce, the Dothan Shogun himself, enjoying all the sunshine, all that warm weather down in your neck of the woods. How are things looking for Bruce's bees right now?
Pretty good. I've just been treating with OAV. I've hit them 4 times. I got a couple more times. I'm going to hit them a couple more weeks, and then we'll check and see if it worked. That's about all I've been doing. We had you have the smell of the fall stuff coming in, the Astra, I guess, the goldenrod, and the hives are looking pretty good. I haven't really cracked a lot of lids lately. I've just kind of been letting them do their thing. And I got to tell you, with the 3 instant vapes that I have, I can get through them in a daggum hurry, man. It's crazy how fast it goes. First 3 treatments I did were with 4 grams per box, and then this past week I just did 4 grams per hive, per colony. And so I just wanted to hit them hard at first. I don't know if it makes a difference or not. It definitely doesn't hurt the bees, but so I just backed off a little bit. And it just hitting them with 4 grams per hive, it went super fast, like as fast as I could move almost, transferring the instant vapes from hive to hive. The turbo, 4 grams takes about 20 seconds. I'm working on a video right now. It should be posted by this weekend, I hope. And I actually did a comparison between it and the compact, and it's like about a 10-second difference for 4 grams. And so it's pretty cool. But that's really about all I've been doing. We do have, you can see I'm relegated once again to the honey room down here. My daughter came down from North Carolina with the 2 grandbabies, and so they're staying with us for just a few days. My other daughter had a baby a week ago, like I guess last Tuesday. So it's been exciting, little girl, and her name is Rosemary Ann, and so she's just a cute little thing. And so we're blessed right now. It's been a little crazy, but it's been fun same time. And really, that's what I'm doing now. There's not a whole lot going on. When I do a more thorough assessment here in 2 or 3 weeks, I'll probably really check weight. I'll probably see, but I think they're doing pretty well overall. I always get nervous this time of the year because, I just you just don't know how they're going to look coming through winter into the spring. I'm already thinking about the spring, all the things I have to do. Greg, you and I are working on some things together, and it just makes me nervous. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, congratulations, Bruce. How many grandkids is that, Bruce?
This is number 4.
Number 4. Wow.
My daughter Savannah that's visiting right now. They moved to North Carolina not long ago, and they have 2. And then Emma, actually the younger daughter, but my third child, second daughter, she moved here a few months ago, and she was already pregnant then. But she's the one that had the baby. She has the oldest grandchild, and my other daughter 2 in between, and then the little one. And then my youngest daughter is engaged to be married in January. And my oldest son, he's kind of off doing his thing. He's also married, so they're getting there. They're almost off the payroll, but we're enjoying these grandbabies. They're a lot of fun.
Wow.
So they love my wife. She's their favorite. I think she's incredible, and they recognize that. Kids recognize that really quickly. She just does such a good job with them, and they have a good time with her.
Family's growing. The bees are doing well. It's a lot to be thankful for. It sounds like, Bruce.
Yeah, it's fun. I really haven't done as much with the YouTube thing. I've kind of just, I've got to get out. I'm trying to get this OAV stuff done, and then I'm going to go out. I've got some of my bee yards are kind of in a mess. Unlike Brian's, it looks like a military setup up there. Everything's in perfect order. Mine are not as nice. I've got boxes from dead out sitting around, and I've got some cleaning up to do, but I'll just kind of take a day when I'm done treating and just go out and try and do that. Just grab a trailer and take it along. I've got some of those old boxes I want to change out still. I'll put some of the ones I got from you, Greg. I still have a few of those left from last year. I'm going to get some more this coming year, hopefully, but just try and replace. I've got some pretty old ones that are beat up. I've only got probably, I don't know, I don't have very many of yours left, but I do have a few left I can change out. And I know you guys up there are talking about being winterized and closing them up and being ready, not looking in them or not doing anything until spring. But down here, it really never completely shuts down. There's never a time with like months where you can't go in them. Like you can, we're always, you can crack them open and peek in on them pretty much year round. Just there are days where you can't, but we're never more than a few days away from being able to do that. I don't like to get in them much, but I will do an occasional inspection, just kind of check and see healthy colonies throughout the year here and there. But, I hope they're okay. I worry about it. I always do. And, every year I tell my wife, I'm like, I hope we get some honey this year. I just don't know if we're gonna get any honey. And then, most years we get a pretty good crop. So, she's like, you say that every year. Then, but anyway, we'll see how things go. But I'm at a point to where I'm pretty comfortable with the number of colonies I have right now. I don't need any more to speak of, as long as I'm still working full time. But I'm also set up, I think, to where if I do retire in the next few years, I will be able to expand pretty quickly. And we're just kind of stashing the money away, whatever we're making from the bees, so I could have enough money to be able to do it and stay debt free on the thing. And so it's been working out well for us, assuming, you never know with beekeeping, farming, etc. You never know what the future years hold. But assuming things go at an average of what they've gone the last few years, we should be able to, meet whatever goals we want to set out there for ourselves.
That's great. It's yeah, you mentioned not really knowing what the future holds or what the next year is going to do, and I think that's one of the great allures, I think, to beekeeping, but it's also one of the hardest things to accept when beekeeping is your business, no matter the scale, and that's definitely a hard thing, profit projection or loss projection, or it gets to be pretty uncomfortable, especially this time of year. Here in Ohio, it's it's similar to Brian. It's now it's full on flannel and Carhartt season. It seems it's 30s and 40s. Look at Brian's looking good there.
It's that
Beautiful leaves falling on the ground there. That everything's kind of grand finale, and that does look nice. Got all the wax tipped equipment, and look at all your buckets with the logos facing forward there. Look at that. Thanks, Brian. That's some product placement.
If you look at the buckets, I've even got the bucket feeder aimed the correct way on every one.
Wow. Look at that.
Look nice. Other than that one white one in the middle that needs replaced, but that'll be next year.
Yeah.
So
nice. Well, there is something rewarding about having a bee yard that looks high and tight, and you just stand back and look and you say, man, that looks good. Or like when you get all your, like for Bruce, when you get all the if you get all the 4 ways, filled, and those times where you go through a yard and everything's in like double deeps, or everything's like double deeps in a super, and it's just clean and crisp and uniform. There's a certain it's rewarding. You got to take time to appreciate it when you do experience that, because a lot of other times in the year it's a melee. It seems like it's just stuff all over the place, and it's I kind of feel like that's where our beekeeping, farming, and supply business feels like right now. It's a lot of melee. It's just a lot of stuff all over the place, and it's not everything is as high and tight as it needs to be. And you keep looking at a bunch of ugly things day after day, and you say, "Gosh, I'm about tired of this. I'm about tired of this aspect of it." Or, what is this actually profiting physically, financially, mentally? Is it taking away spiritually? All these things. It's the time of the year we got to spend a little time and be honest with ourselves. I once heard someone say, build a life that you don't need a vacation from. I don't know that I've ever experienced that. There are times where, you don't want to be, and most of the time you don't want to be anywhere else. Early mornings, late nights, watching the stars, hearing the crickets, hearing the birds come up, spending the time that we are blessed to outside. It's amazing, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. But it doesn't mean that it's easy, and it doesn't mean that you don't have those thoughts, and you hear that voice, causing confusion or trying to set you down a path of doubt or fear. But this time of the year, it's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, the fall time here is so incredible. I've got to speak at the West Virginia Bee Fair. I got to speak at an event with Fred Dunn with the Monroe County folks. I just spoke yesterday at earlier this week at the Jefferson County Beekeepers Banquet. And spending time with so many beekeepers really is kind of the wind and the sails, especially this time of year. And it's hard to sometimes balance the highs and the lows. Sometimes you're up on the mountain with everything, and sometimes you're down in the valley and you're taking on water and you're tired and you're wore out, and you look up at a straight face and you feel, how in the world, Lord, am I going to climb? But you just, it's that next conversation or that next little thing that God reminds us that He's the same God in the mountain as the same God in the valley, and just put one foot in front of the other. And then there are times that we're reminded that, it's appointed unto man who wants to die. And the judgment thereafter, our hearts and prayers go out to the Nielsen family. Mr. Jim Nielsen passed away recently, and I always enjoyed seeing Jim and Sherry at the conferences. There's a lot to say about Big Jim. He was just that kind of guy who walked around with a certain humility and happiness and smile, especially hand in hand, him and Sherry walking through the Bee Expo, or when you would see him at conferences and such. As a military veteran, and it was always fun to hear kind of what he was working on, his dreams and ambitions for growing and retiring from his day job, going into beekeeping. And, to be a small part of someone's growth and supplying them with, equipment, and just the phone calls that you hear, it was always a good reminder that there was always somebody out there just getting after it. There's just somebody out there who's not letting everything in front of them stop them. They're just going after it head on. And I think I'll remember that for sure from Jim. But I think one thing I'll never forget is just how he and Sherry would look at each other, and that love and that passion that they had for each other and that they had for beekeeping together. That's nothing you can fake. That's nothing. You just can't put a smile on it. Like they loved each other and they loved what they were doing. And I think for a lot of us, that's, you can't ask for anything more than that. To love what you do and spend time with the one that you love doing that. I mean, that's an incredible blessing. So if you would, keep the Nielsen family and Miss Sherry in your thoughts and in your prayers as she kind of travels through this next part of that journey. The fall time is, it's the grand finale. The colors are changing, the leaves are falling, and it seems like certain death for nearly everything. It's a dormant time, a time of rest, resetting and rebuilding for another spring growth or a spring boom. But sometimes you feel like it's just time to quit. Sometimes you feel like, you're going too far in one direction. You feel like you're sacrificing too much of certain things to try to make other things happen. And guys, I'll be honest, trying to be a beekeeper and a beekeeping supplier and a father and a husband and a YouTuber and a podcaster and every other thing in life, it all stacks up, and there is only so much of your cup that you can pour out into all of those things. And this is the time where I honestly just feel spent, wore out. So we did something that we haven't really done in probably nearly 10 years. We are celebrating our 10-year YouTube anniversary. I can't believe that. It's been 10 years.
Oh.
And we're celebrating 10 years of the farm establishment. And it's been so busy. It's just been full on that there wasn't an opportunity to take a week off. and do nothing but vacation. Sure, we might go to a conference here. We might get, work in a thing. So the whole family, we went down and we rented a house on the beach and spent an entire week literally just spending time with each other, spending our time with our feet in the sand, feet in the ocean. I learned there's so many thoughts that I had as when you detach. We talk about this before every year. If we go back, Bruce and Brian, if we look at episodes where we talk about burnout, we kind of talk about, well, what do you do to get through those things? What are some things that you think about when you do that? And one thing that I think for me is really helpful is you have to be able to completely detach from your current circumstance, so that you can properly assess that situation. Then you can build and put a new plan together and then re-engage. Those 3 steps: detach, assess, and then re-engage. So for us to be able to spend time I don't know what it is about the ocean, but just to sit and watch it over and over and over and over and over again, I just absolutely can't get enough. The big highlight, I think, for us though, was any of the kids who were not yet baptized. I was able to baptize them in the ocean at sunrise, and it was just a beautiful thing. Reason I say all that is it seems like mentally it's time to kind of rebirth some of the things that we're doing on the farm with bees, with supplies, with our family, with our time. We have sacrificed birthdays, holidays, time with kids, all of these things to be able to grow a business, to be able to give those time and attention to customers, to give those time and attention to other businesses. And you at some point realize, I wish I would have brought it tonight. When I was in probably middle school for an art project at public school, it was on my heart to kind of make this painting for my preacher grandpa. And it was a scripture that was on my heart then, and it keeps replaying now, but it was, what would it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his own soul? I don't care what you're doing in life with your job or whatever business it is. At some point, that's all we are doing is trading our time every single day for money. And when you accept that and you understand that, you really got to put some time into saying, okay, where am I putting all my time? So it's the time of the year, guys, where it's time to say, this isn't working. We've got to just cut this relationship off. We have to cut this offering off. We have to put more time into those things. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We'll get into that a little bit more as these things kind of become more clear. But at some point, I want to encourage folks, it's okay to spend some time with those uncomfortable thoughts and say, what does this look like if I don't do this? What does this look like if I make a change here? At the end of the day, I could care less what anybody says, what anybody thinks, or what opinions any folks have if we don't do this, if we do this certain thing. And I know that's very vague right now, but I guess I'm in just a spot right now, guys, where I've got no problem right now cutting out any of the dead weight, cutting out any of the things that are too needy, cutting out any of the relationships, cutting out any of the things in life that are taking away from our future as a family, our future as a business, and more importantly, our walk with the Lord. So I know that was probably about a 15-minute rant, but that's what's been going on here at Nature's Image Farm update. Bruce, you guys, you get to a point every year where it feels like it's time to put some thought into what you're doing and kind of hold yourself more accountable. Do you guys go through those thoughts and processes as well?
Yeah, I've definitely gone through that every year in recent times, and this year for sure. Mine was a couple months ago, actually. I'm kind of pulling out of that now. Just kind of a lot of the similar thoughts as far as, I just feel like I'm strapped trying to do too many things. And that's one thing I've been talking about for probably a month or two, about revisiting YouTube, kind of rethinking it, what I'm doing with it. And I haven't been posting as often. I used to feel obligated pretty much every time I went to the bee yard to film something or show what I'm doing. And I'm trying to figure out a little different track or a little different way of doing things. And not that I don't plan on quitting it, but I do want to, kind of focus on just being a better beekeeper, being a better person, being able to be more efficient in the bee yard so I can spend more time at home or doing things around the house. And, but yeah, I really, with the event that happened September 10th out there, that really shocked me with the Charlie Kirk thing. I, once again, I went to school at Brigham Young, BYU, and that's about 4 to 5 miles away from UVU's campus. We had a member of our church, a good friend of mine, he had a daughter that was there. A couple of girls from right here in our local ward or church right here in town were at the event. One of them actually was filming when it happened on her phone. And so I really had that just really kind of, and I've been a fan of Charlie's for years. I've watched him. I've had a lot of respect for him. Not that I was I didn't watch him all the time. I watched him a lot more after this happened. But, I was thinking, really, I've always been one that's been pretty, uh, I haven't been as bold as I should be with my testimony, but I've always had a strong testimony. And, I think I have. It could obviously get better. But I just feel like I want to, just be a better person, not be, just be more bold. And I'm not an outgoing, like I'm not a preachy person at all. That's not my personality, but just live a life that's an example to those around me, where if someone wants to ask or wants to find out what I believe or why I'm that way, I'm ready to tell them and share, why I have the happiness and the peace that I feel. And, honestly, bees have a big part of that. We talked, Greg, when you asked me what is about those bugs in the box, the first thing that came to my mind was, I had to think about it a minute, but there's something divine about it. It didn't just happen. There is a creator, there has to be. And those things don't just happen. And so that's, I don't know. I think we're all trying on this journey. We're all trying to figure things out, but I just want to be a better person, a better man, a better husband, a better father, a better Christian follower of Christ. And then a better, that should be number one. And then everything else falls into line. And, work comes next and then the bees come after that. And so I'm kind of, the bees are down the list just a little ways. And, I'm having a good year of sports wise. I'm a big fan, and BYU is my school, and of course Alabama. I like Alabama too, but BYU their coach has a saying. He says they need to remain humble and hungry, and I think that's kind of what we need to think about with with anything we're doing. Remain humble first of all, and hungry to do to make the right thing, the right choice. In football, is you want to win, but you also want to remain humble. He really emphasizes to the players that football is down the list of ways, even though that's what they do. They go and play in front of these great big huge crowds. But the next morning, I think I heard a story where the quarterback that had a great game this Saturday night in the rival game, the next morning he was in a nursing home playing a guitar, for older people in a nursing home. So that's kind of the type of guys. That's the kind of type of person I tried to be when I was playing football in college, and I think a lot of those guys do, and a lot of guys at every university I think do that. But that's the kind of person I want to be, is one that can lay it on the line, both at work, with the bees, with the family, and then still be able to wake up the next day and serve and go and do those things that matter even more than the worldly things that we do. And so it's a kind of a game we play. It's a challenge every day to remain humble and hungry. I like that quote from Kalani Sitake, the head coach. I just love that because it's true. In everything we do, remain humble first, and then hungry. And I think hungry for spiritual things more than anything else, but we do need to do that. And so I'm trying to, I think life is a process. If we were all perfect, if we all had it figured out, we wouldn't need to be here anymore. So we're all trying to learn and grow. And that's what we're trying to do here. And these interactions we have via what we're doing right now, via contact we make every day, it's like a tapestry. And what kind of an influence are we going to have on people? Are we going to have a positive influence? Are we going to help lift people up? Are we going to help them move forward? Are we going to have a Christ-like countenance? Are we going to have a positive impact on people? That doesn't mean we're always, just saying it's okay, you're doing everything. I mean, you need to, sometimes we have to, I think we have to be chastised a little bit. And sometimes we have to do a little bit of chastising ourselves. Sometimes we have to be willing to bold and stand up for what we believe or correct things. But that doesn't mean, we have to have integrity. And those are all things I think that I'm working on. I'm trying my whole heart, my life. My dad was he had the most integrity of anyone I've ever known. And if I could be the half the man he was, I'll be okay. But that's kind of where I've been dealing with a lot of these things in my mind. The bees, of course, I've been thinking about that. Just today, I was thinking about, I'm always thinking about what I can do with the bees, but in reality, the bees are down the list a little ways as far as what matters most. However, I've been given the stewardship of these bees, and for some reason, my heart is in these bees. It's got to be some direction from above. I tried all kinds of little entrepreneurial things throughout my life since I was a kid. And this is the first thing that's really been a successful thing for me that I've just absolutely, I've looked forward to. I love it. I enjoy it. And it's been really good for me. And so I think I've been guided. I hope I've been guided. I believe I've been guided from above to do this. And by doing it, I've met you guys. I've met a lot of the people in this chat right here. I've met people. There's a lot of people through YouTube that I've never met that have watched videos, I'm sure. Hopefully I've been able to have a positive impact on them. But anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with everything. But I got a little burnout. Every year it happens, but probably July, August, September, I was really kind of struggling with a few things, just kind of just exhausted mentally in September. And then that happened. And on September 10th, at a place that I drove by all the time, we're in Utah, we drive by to go to BYU. Every day on the way to BYU and school, I lived up north of town. To get off the interstate right by UVU right there, just drive right by it. I can explain, I can almost describe to you what it looks like. Back then it was a community college, but now it's a full-fledged university. And so it just really kind of hit home to me because I'm very familiar with that area. It's right there where I went to school and where I've spent countless days and hours and of my life out there. So, but I think that there are probably some people in the chat that may not feel the same way I do, but I think that Charlie was a really good man. He was bold in his testimony. Wonderful family, taught true principles. Whether or not you believed in what he believed in politically, he was a family man and he believed in the family. It was important to get married and have more kids than you can afford, he would say. And those are all principles that I value as well. So I'm finally kind of, that kind of actually helped me to be bold as well, to be a little more bold and try to come out of my shell a little bit as far as sharing what I believe. I always try to live right. I always try to do what the Savior would have me do, but I'm not. I need to stop being, I need to be more involved, I guess, in sharing as the Spirit directs. So that's kind of where I'm at. As far as the bees go, I'm actually kind of ramping up. I'm getting more and more excited about that. I just hope I can keep them alive through the winter, and then we can come into the spring. I've kind of passed that discouragement. I passed that burnout stage of probably 4 to 6 weeks ago, and now I'm kind of ramped up and ready to go. I'm ready to let's get it on. I wish it was kind of ready for January, February to hit so I can get on it. I'm excited about this coming year.
Bruce, do you feel like as you're trying to balance all these things, I think 99.9% of everyone listening to this now, or they're listening to it later, or they listen to this in the future, a lot of folks they feel stretched thin. They feel like, how in the world am I going to be able to have the time to, imagine, I mean, you know what this is like, Bruce, but if you're constantly working a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and you are a beekeeper and you're trying to grow your apiary, I mean, that leaves you no time. You try to get in before you go to work at the worst time of the day. You try to get into those bees after 5, which is also the second worst time of the day, or it's dark by the time that you are physically spent and you're pouring out of you from your 9 to 5 to try to make the time for the bees. And it leaves you Saturday and Sunday, and hopefully you're going to church on Sunday or spending time with family. And so it leaves you Saturday, leaves you 1 day a week, that limits you on what you can do, and you grow and you've got aspirations. And you say, man, I wish I could do this, or I want to do that. Or if only, this is a great, Miss Marianne Sears here. This is a great quote. I feel thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread. From Bilbo Baggins, she says, "That's how I feel when I take on too much." I think that's exactly it, and it's hard to accept that. Sometimes you are in a mindset where it's never good enough. Nothing's good enough. You're always are trying to do more. You're always trying to grow. You're always trying to do better. And when you keep that pace for too long, eventually you hit a brick wall, and there can be some casualty. I think to that. Bruce, do you feel like as you're balancing your full-time job and your family and your bees, do you feel like there is still more of you to pour out into another cup, or does it feel like you are always having to pour from another cup to fill the cup that you want to put the attention into?
It's a little bit of both. It really depends. I am getting. I mean, I'm being honest with this. I'm getting a little bit older, and so when I was younger, I could just go and go and go. It seemed like even though I would get tired, but now when I get tired, I just have to stop sometimes. And so I do get to that point. I did a little better job this year of trying to manage that. I think I see people, and I've done it in the past, that are out there that work full-time jobs, that are out there moving bees, feeding bees at 11 o'clock at night, things like that. I know that Ashley Miller was doing that kind of stuff like before and after work. And now I think Ashley's doing bees full time. But my buddy Tyler Walker down here, he'd send me a picture of him out there moving bees at midnight out there. He's got his truck loaded up with bees and just moving around. And then he was working full time as well. As far as I used to go out in the afternoons quite a bit, and I never really went in the mornings because I get up at 5:30 in the morning and go to work. So but I would go out quite a bit in the afternoons. I still do that occasionally, but mostly I just preserve. I actually work 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, 10-hour days typically. And so I usually have Friday and Saturday. And right now, this time of the year, I'm trying to kind of get most of it done in one of those 2 days if I can. So I still have the other day to kind of not have to be in the bees. And I'm kind of using that August, kind of fill that gas tank up a little bit and get some things done around the house for the spring, that when I'm out there from sunup to sundown every day. But the thing that frustrates me is, and I don't know if you guys, Greg, I know you both feel this a little bit, but when I'm at work at my real job, I'm always thinking about, how I can, what can I do to just sell more honey, or what can I do to be better at? I'm always, I'm not always thinking about that, but in spare moments, so between patients or when I got a little bit of downtime, I'm always kind of thinking about what can I do. And there comes a point to where you just don't want to make the phone calls, you don't want to check the YouTube channel, you don't want to do those things because you just get tired and worn down. But yeah, definitely, I feel sometimes like my cup's definitely drained. And the thing that can happen, and Greg, you described it, I think beautifully, is that if you just focus so much on work and you focus on the things that the world has to offer, it can wear you down to the point to where you start pushing what really matters the most, family and God aside, or God and the family in that order aside a little bit. And then that's when you really kind of start to get in trouble. And so I do try to preserve. I do very little stuff on Sundays when it comes to, I may bottle up some honey, but as far as getting out and doing bees, unless it's an auction to Meyer situation, I try to stay out of the bee yards on Sundays. I try not to do much at all on Sundays because I do have Friday and Saturday. But I try to focus, lots of times it's rest, lots of time. I go to church every Sunday. I haven't missed, my entire life. Shoot, I haven't missed hardly any days of church. Maybe, I don't know if I've missed in my entire life. Just a handful of days of church. I just have always gone since I was a little kid. And I that's my spiritual fuel tank. That's how I fill up for the week. And so I have to have that. And, but even when we travel, we've got churches worldwide, all over the world. And so we can find one of our churches pretty much anywhere. So, and it's pretty much the same everywhere we go. So it's just I just have to go. That's one thing. If I don't go, it doesn't work well for me. I don't know how people do it when they don't go to church on Sundays, because it really gives me that it fills me up for the week. But anyway, but yes, I do get spiritually drained, and what I have to do, Greg, is kind of like what you said, kind of pull aside a little bit. Just kind of, the bees honestly are what probably pay the price more than anything, because if it gets to a point, I figure the bees they're going to survive for another week if I don't get out there. They are theoretically, they're wild animals. They can take care of themselves. And so if I needed to treat this Friday, this weekend, and I had had to go somewhere, or just didn't have the energy to do it, I would just probably wait till next weekend, and that would get me behind on my schedule a little bit. But I've got to focus on what matters most, and that's our whole life. We're trying to kind of figure that out, I believe.
Yeah. Well, there's always, I think there's a lot of great places to learn about bees, but I think what I love the most about the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat is we can get to the heart and the mind of the beekeeper. And when you spend time in those most uncomfortable areas, what a tremendous leverage point that is for the actual beekeeping. So Bruce, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. I'm going to thank Jester40 has been a member of the YouTube channel for an entire month. So Jester40, thank you for that. Castle Hives has been a member of the Nature's Image Farm YouTube channel 38 months. Really do appreciate that, Brian. And Brian, also thank you for your $20 super chat tonight. Hashtag donuts, hashtag stream team, hashtag 27 years, hashtag howdy y'all. Brian, thanks for all your support there. And Mr. George, look at Brian. He slipped out. Brian's having some weather up in his neck of the woods, some wind, and I think it's affecting his power scenario there. But Mr. George Ford, I've seen George a couple times this year, so George, is great to see you, and thanks for being here tonight. And thank you for your $10 super chat. Really do appreciate that. Folks, if you have questions tonight, we will get to some questions. Just if you would, please leave them in all caps so that we can see them, highlight them, and make sure we give you some attention there in those areas. As Brian tries to get back on and catch his signal again, Bruce. Yeah, I like what you said there. We've got to spend time as the man part, the human flesh part, making sure that everything is lined up and aligned and prioritized correctly. And I think that's where this time of year where you hear those whispers, just lay down your weapons. You've done enough, haven't you? Why don't you just call that quits there? Why don't you just stop while you're ahead? Or, don't you know that the road ahead, it's just going to get tougher. It's just going to get harder. Why don't you just stop now? Why don't you just go ahead and quit? And I think a lot of folks, it's easy to spend time listening to that voice, and it's really easy to spend too much time with those thoughts. And have you ever noticed when you hear that certain little voice that comes in like that, and you give it any attention or any time, that voice just gets a little bit louder, and then those little words become sentences, and that become paragraphs, that become novels in your mind. It's one thing that I'll admit here in the last couple of weeks, there was a couple times where, mentally I spent way too much time with those thoughts, and I spent way too much time entertaining that voice. But then I was reminded who the author of confusion is and who the author of fear is. And as soon as I acknowledged that and then removed that from my mind and from the space that I was in, just like those waves crashing on the shore, very, very quickly, you start to regain that hope and regain that joy when you're putting your trust in God, and when you're putting there's something flawed about man where we think we have to understand everything and we have to know everything at all times, and we can spend a lot of times in between, in those the gray area, trying to figure all these things out, and that can be a real problem. One of the big things right now, Bruce, that I think a lot of beekeepers are looking at, and like with anything else, there's always going to be the fear mongering, and there is always going to be the clickbait, and there's always going to be the do this or your bees are going to die tonight while you sleep, you dirty dog, unless you watch this video, these things happen. Right now there's a lot of fear around tropolapse mites, and I'm not saying that the tropolapse that it's not dangerous and that it's not scary, and that it's not a big deal. But I think if we look at this, if we pull back just a little bit from this, why are we so afraid right now of tropolapse? Why are we spending so much time sounding the alarms? And you might say, well, it's so we can put a plan together, so we can be preventative, so we can be strategic in this approach, so we can, actually get ahead of this thing so it doesn't become a problem. Bruce, how many times in beekeeping history have we ever gotten ahead of a problem? Have we ever actually identified the source of the problem? And have we ever actually put together any long-term, resilient, or sustainable strategic plans for any of these things?
Yeah, I agree. So many people I've seen so much, and I'm glad people are looking into these things, but the how do you say it? Tropia lopez, whatever how do you say the mite? How do you say it?
Yeah.
The tropy mite. I've seen people that are just absolutely losing their mind over this. I have a friend who's just been worried about it now for years, and then I remember this past spring when people were just like, "Oh my gosh, beekeepers are losing 80% of their colonies, and it's a total bee die off. We're in horrible shape." And I know that for the people that happen to, it's awful. But what I've witnessed over the past year is so many people, including some right here in this chat tonight, have rebuilt. Brian rebuilt. He lost down to 3 colonies, and he's rebuilt up to where he wants to be. I know there's others in here that have had to rebuild. I had to expand a little bit, though I didn't have the die off. A lot of people did. And but back in March, April, people were just absolutely freaking out about it. But even I think the commercial guys have probably built back up pretty good. And so there was a massive bee die off, and I know they have theories as to what happened. And the way I look at it with any of these things, and what I have to do is compartmentalize. I know that mite is coming. Just I guess this past few days, in the past few days, they found some on a boat, whatever that means. Were there bees coming over on a boat? How did they find them on a boat? I'm not sure how that worked out. I didn't listen to Cayman's video. I need to watch his he did a live chat or a video yesterday, but or the day before. But I just feel like, what can I do? What can I do to stop the tropy mites from coming here? All I can do is just continue to take care of my bees the best way I know how. And if it does come here, then there are people doing research on it. There are people going over to where it's prominent that are actually doing a lot of research, trying to figure the thing out and how to treat it. So hopefully when it does come here, we'll have some strategies. And my livelihood is not bees. Even if I retired right now without having bees as a second income, I would probably be okay to survive for, I would be okay. And so I'm not desperate. It's not my 100% my own source of income. And so to me, if it just got to where it was too much, I could just step away from beekeeping. I don't want to do that, but I'm going to fight it if I need to. But hopefully we'll have some strategies when that thing arrives here. But I don't know what good it does. I think, Greg, this is what you're getting at. What good does it do for me to sit here right now and worry about this mite? It might come next week, or it might be 10 years down the road. We don't know when it's going to get here. It probably will get here one day. But all we can do is pay attention to the research that's going on, and be alert and attentive of it, and then just deal with it when it comes. And it's really that way with anything in life. I worry a lot about things that never come to fruition or never come to pass, get anxious about things. Really all that we should worry about is what we have complete control over. And we can take care of, our own selves and what we're trying to do, our attitude. We can work on that. We can try to become a better person, but we really don't have any control over other people. We don't have any control over what's going on in the world, although we can go vote. But what else can we really do? You know what I mean? And I'm interested in that kind of thing. I pay attention to it. But yeah, I agree with you, man. That's a good point. I figured we'd talk about that a little bit, but just, you can't let yourself get discouraged about things that aren't immediately affecting you. You can pay attention, be vigilant, and move ahead with faith, right? It's like anything else in life. And just realize that if you do have faith, if you do believe in a creator, if you do believe that you're, that you have a purpose here, then even if that challenge does come up, it'll be for a reason, right? It'll be a reason for it. It'll help you grow stronger, whatever happens, whatever the results are. And so that's kind of my attitude. I haven't been concerned about it. I haven't really paid that much attention to it, although a lot of people are really worried about it, possibly with good reason. But what good's it going to do me right now? And I'm just trying to survive day to day. To worry about this mite that's in a different part of the world, even though it is heading here, and we'll have to address it when it comes.
That's a great way of saying that, Bruce. If you look back historically, you look back at tracheal mites, and then you look at varroa mites, and then small hive beetles, and then varroa mites again. But the problem is, as beekeepers, we are always going to have blinders on, and we are never actually going to be in that groove or be in that zone where we feel like the actions taken, the intel, the research, and what to do is ever all happening at the right time. It never is, never has been, never will be. And I'm not for 2 seconds waiting around until a researcher or a study or a product comes on the market to save me from the evils of whatever a certain boogeyman is. The fact of the matter is, it's never helped. Hygienic bees aren't saving bees. Miticides aren't saving bees. All these treatments aren't saving bees to the point to where these bees can just continue on whatever cycle that they're on. It's not going to happen. But one of the big, here's a for instance. Right now we have, everyone is so focused on varroa mites. I'll ask you guys, do you guys have a problem with tracheal mites in your colonies right now? You sure?
No. Well,
you sure about that? How would you know?
Good question. The only way to know is to send them off and get them evaluated.
Yeah, or put them under a microscope, where you start to see certain weird viruses and certain mortalities and certain things that you say, well, my mite counts were low and I did all the treatments and my bees are still dying. What's going on? Well, I'll have you know that we have been spending so much time focusing on varroa mites that there is nary a beekeeper who says, I have a tracheal mite problem. But did you know that tracheal mites are still a big problem? That tracheal mites they still exist? And as a matter of fact, the day that I spoke with Fred Dunn at the conference not too long ago here in Ohio, that the West Virginia inspector, Chandra King, some folks were coming up and saying, hey, like there's tracheal mite outbreaks that are happening all over the place, including West Virginia. They're finding tracheal mite problems. And what does that look like? And I talked to Fred about it, and Fred said, look, this has been going on, but the focus has been pounded so hard about varroa mites that no one is paying attention, but yet still blaming everything on varroa mites when there's still other boogeymen going on. Guys, the fact of the matter is, we're never going to 100% keep bees clean and virus free in any of the efforts that we're going to do. But all we can do is try to do our best every single year and keep these bugs in the box as healthy and as happy and alive as we possibly can. But there may come another point in time where we are all tremendously humbled by whatever the circumstance is with the honeybees.
There will come a point in time. There will come a point in time. Exactly.
Yeah. Are we going to quit? Do we keep going? That's a question that you folks have to ask yourself. But let me tell you something. If the only thing that you're worried about with your beekeeping is Tropicalaps mites, I would highly encourage you to take a much closer look at the health of your bees, your management, your practice, because there are a lot more things that are more important to be worried about right now with your bees than Tropicalaps.
Hey, Greg, do you remember when we were down here last, I guess February 1st, we were going through those colonies, and we were down in Appleton Farms, and we saw some kind of little tiny something in there, some kind of little bug or something. Remember that?
I do remember that.
We were like, what are those? And I was thinking in the back of my mind, oh no, could that be the trophy mites? But it wasn't. I mean, I don't know what those were, but they disappeared. I haven't seen them since. But there's some kind of little tiny something in there moving around, crawling around in the hives. So it was kind of weird.
Whatever they were quick.
Yeah, they were. They looked. I think they had maybe like teeny tiny, they may have been like little teeny tiny gnats or something. I don't think they were mites. I think there was some kind of little insect that was in there. But yeah, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I remember we both said, what is that? And it wasn't a ton of them, but there were a few of them in some of the colonies there. But anyway, it's just, once again, it's a thing where you deal with it when you can prepare and get ready, but you deal with it when it comes. There's no reason to lose. There's no reason, I don't think, to sell all your bees because you're afraid of the trophy mite. I mean,
Right.
if that's, to me, that if you love your bees, that would be, in my opinion, kind of foolish to do that, to get so worried about that. That's like the people that get so worried about getting in a car accident they won't leave their house, or it's just, you can't let things out of your control you. You just can't do that. You can only control the things that you can control, and everything else you just have to have faith and trust in God, so to speak, to get you to the next level wherever you need to be.
Mm. I missed some of what you guys were talking about. And apologies, everybody. We have 10 like mile-an-hour steady winds, and they said tonight we were going to get 20 and 30 mile-an-hour gusts. So the Wi-Fi here, and I rarely have issues. The Wi-Fi here is getting a little bit buggy tonight, but I missed what you were talking about. But spot on, exactly what you were saying there, Bruce. I tell my son that all the time. There's things that, and he's younger, so he doesn't have all the years on him. And I tell him, I'm like, Jared, there are many things that you're going to come across in life that you have absolutely no control over. So why let it affect you? Worry about what you can directly control, and that's it. There's a lot of things out there in life, in beekeeping, that, oh my gosh, I could walk out there and just be paralyzed and say, well, gosh, my grandfather years ago, exactly where I have my hives at, had foul brood and had to burn his hives. Oh my gosh, I could let that just control me and just paralyze me. But I'm not worried about it. I learned that some years ago, that you can't let things that are outside of your control paralyze you and affect your day-to-day life, because it's not healthy. Not healthy for you. And, live life.
I'll do a beekeeping analogy here.
See?
It just came to my mind. Think about the bees,
Yeah.
They don't have any idea what's coming. They don't know if it's going to be a good year or if it's going to be a bad year. They don't have any clue. They do, obviously, I think, read what's going on around them faster than we do. You can see them preparing for things, but what do they do in the spring? They don't know if it's going to rain 2 days down the road, but they just go out and they work as hard as they can. They collect the nectar, they collect the pollen, they feed the queen, they just do everything they can they just stay active and busy, and they just prepare. They're always working, always moving ahead, and they just don't worry about it. Obviously they're bugs, they're insects, and we're humans, so that's a little different there. They don't have the emotions we have, but although sometimes my bees seem to have some emotion, I don't know, but they prepare. And then, if, for example, just say a beekeeper like any of you guys or me goes along, and these bees have been working hard. They have no idea we're planning on splitting them. They don't know about this, right? So we go in there in a beautiful, great big colony that's just a double deep, packed out with bees. They're as happy as they can be. The nectar, pollen, everything's rolling in. And we go and we break them into 2 or 3 more colonies. We take a bunch of the brood away. We take a bunch of the bees away. We stick a new queen in there. And what do those bees do? They just take a little while. They kind of just slow down for maybe a few minutes, maybe a couple hours, maybe a couple of days. You go back there in a week, and they're just right back to business as usual, as if nothing even happened. And so, if there's a drought, what do? They don't work quite as hard, as far as like they may even cannibalize some of their eggs and their brood. Not that we should do that, obviously, but they quit laying. They just shut things down a little bit, and they just wait, and they're always out checking and looking for opportunities. And when those opportunities arise, they go right back to work. And so, if we could be a little bit more like that in a way, if we could just kind of deal with what we can deal with, read the signs around us, whether it be, with nature things, or whether it be at work, whether it be financially, just utilize the things that we have to our advantage in the best way possible, prepare for the future, do those things that we need to do, store, get some food stuck away, get some money stashed, work hard and just do the best we can. And then when hard times come, just deal with it, just kind of sometimes like we may have a death in the family. We may lose a job. All of us have frustrating and horrible things that happen to us or difficult things that happen to us. So sometimes we have to mourn a little bit. We have to step back and regroup a little bit, but then let's just do what we have to do. Like Greg, you took a week off, you went and recharged. We have to do that sometimes, but then let's just go back to work. And just kind of, that's an example the bees, I think, give to us, although obviously it's a pretty, real basic example, but that's something I just thought about when you were talking, Brian. They just don't worry about it. It's easy because they have tiny, tiny little brains, and we have these great big brains that get us all wrapped up and tied up in knots about things. But really, that's kind of how we should be. Bees have, they want to collect food and they want to make babies, right? That's the main two things they have on their mind. And those are the main priorities they have. I imagine defending the hive is down the list a little ways, but they're ready to do that if they have to. Same thing with us. Where are our priorities? Number one, I think we would all agree on this, the three of us, and hopefully, or some of the people most of the people I think in the chat agree that God should come first, then family, and then, work and whatever we do for work, whether it be working in a hospital, full-time beekeeper, whatever it is. And then in my case, I would say the bees come probably behind my regular work. And then other stuff like sports and other things I enjoy doing, are important. And so they have their priorities, we have ours. And if we can figure out how to get things prioritized properly, then we will be better equipped to deal with anything that comes up. We'll take advantage of opportunities because we're being guided by, God. And we'll also be able to deal with difficult times that come. I think that's important. People who have no compass, who have no barometer, who have no anchor, it's just difficult. They're tossed around, as it says, by the winds of the sea. They're tossed around. They have no idea. And those are the people who have a real hard time in the storms of life. We all have difficult time, but some people just almost can't survive it because they have no anchor. So that's kind of my little bit of, I'm trying to philosophize. I can't do as good as Greg does, but that's kind of, that analogy popped in my head. I thought it worked.
Well, bees, though, I mean, us as humans as a whole. Now, this isn't everyone. I think those in like our generation we've been better equipped to handle adversity, to handle situations, like say, we're the bee and we're in a strong colony and we're split three ways. Our generation, we tend to not be as paralyzed by adversity, and bees as a whole, they don't, they don't look at a situation like, well, Bruce Jenny came along and we had, we built up this monstrous colony here. I've got 50,000 sisters in here and we're just, we're doing fantastic. We're doing great. When, Bruce comes along, Greg comes along and splits them out so that you can expand your yard out, they're not going to sit there and, go on social media and cry to the world, or they're not going to, sit for a week and bellyache and whine. And they just look at it and they're like, well, hey, these are the cards that we're dealt right now. This is what we have to do. And bees, I think we all agree, bees want to survive. When they come out of winter, their whole goal early in the spring is, well, reproduction. That's typically when swarms occur. That's how they survive. They're multiplying their colonies. Working through the year, they build up to survive the winter. Bees are just right away, they're like, well, hey, you split us. Well, guess what? We're going to kick it into gear and we're going to look at the cards that we have been dealt and we are going to work to survive. That's it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They don't have all the emotional stuff involved that we do, though, which that's totally understandable. I even think about humans, though, how resilient people are. I live down here, and you guys have had massive winter storms up there, and you've had natural disasters. Down here, we have hurricanes. A few years ago, there was a Hurricane Michael came just went to the east of us. We got some high winds here. We had some damage here in town, but even just like 30 miles east of us, it was total devastation. And down on the coast, like Mexico City, I think was basically just wiped off the map. Basically, it was just crazy. Like you could see slabs where houses had been there, and they were gone completely from the storm surge that came in. And our church is really involved with natural disaster relief all over the world, and we, got called in as volunteers. I actually injured my back with Michael, so I didn't help a lot with that. But my wife is involved with some the command center where they kind of helped organize and coordinate relief efforts. And I've been over to Louisiana, different state, all over the place, different places doing this relief. And one thing that you see is that there's a thing that happens, and the bees probably do this, but they do it very quickly. But there's an assessment that takes place. First thing is boots on the ground. You got to see where the problems are, where the main needs are, and then you just go. You go to work, you get the crews in, you see what supplies are needed. And our church, actually, we bring in truckloads of supplies and people come and get them, chainsaws, everything you need. And volunteers come in from all over the country, all over the Southeast, and help. And then you just go out and you get work orders, and you go out and you start cleaning up yards. And that's kind of what the bees do. You split a hive. What are they going to do? They're immediately going to see, do we have a queen? No, we don't. We need to make one. Or, my gosh, there's a new one in here. We're going to see if we need to accept her. But they still continue to work. They still continue to go out and collect and do what they need to do. And eventually they adapt pretty quickly. Humans are a little slower to do that, but we can do that. It's amazing how much people can accomplish, how much we can accomplish. We've been kind of going philosophical on this tonight, but I think it's good. But the bees really can give us a good example and for how to do that. And you think about the tremendous amount of stress that some people are put under, and how people are resilient, and sometimes that's how we become stronger. And it happens to each of us, not just with great major disasters that happen, but each of us individually has our own storms that we have to withstand, whatever they are. And but people have an amazing ability, an amazing strength and ability to overcome and to come out on the other side stronger if we're willing to put our priorities where they need to be and just combat that and continue to move forward. When it comes to beekeeping and quitting, sometimes that might be the right answer. But once again, people can be resilient. Beekeepers can be resilient. I think it's a really resilient bunch. I think about some people. Brian, you're a prime example of someone who a couple of times in the last few years, one year you lost everything. Last year you were down to 3, but here you are. You keep coming back, and every year, I think every time you come back, I think you're just a little bit stronger, a little bit better beekeeper. And we've all had loss, Greg. I know you have. I have. And you learn through that. And that's really kind of what life's all about.
Yeah.
Well said, Bruce. It's been a year where this was a year of nearly zero honey harvest. The way everything shaped up, it was always one thing after another. Thank God we look at the opportunities when they are there, and the timing was right to make brood and to make splits. The season went off the rails and was really challenging for queens. There was no honey for May, June, July. We just kept moving forward with the bees. Things were just trickling in, and we were building up for, let's get our bees built back up. Let's get the mites pinned back. Maybe we'll have a fall flow that we can maybe capitalize. And fall flow never really hit. The lantern flies did, and what honey we did get, I think, is significantly impacted by lanternfly. And then now we're here at the end of the year, and it's like, man, it wasn't that long ago where we were sitting in here March, April of this year saying, oh man, we just need to have a better year than we had the year prior. Last year was not great. Last year was a pretty bad year too. And then there was all that significant loss. And a lot of folks packed it up. They're done. You have a year like this, and it becomes challenging for no matter what kind of farmer you are. You have enough consecutive unprofitable years in a row, and you have to make some calls. The word quitting, I think, is hard for a lot of us, because when you say I'm quitting something, it's somehow you associate that with, well, I don't have the wherewithal to dig in and keep pressing forward in this direction. But I think there's a difference between quitting and cutting. It's a huge difference. I think it's high time for a lot of us to start cutting out the things in our physical life, our mental life, our spiritual life, our business life, our bee life, our social media life. I think it's time to start cutting a lot of things out so we can have more availability of us to pour into the things that actually matter. You want to call it quitting? Fine. I'm calling it cutting, and things that are taking away from the prime directive, from the great mission. It's time to cut those things out. If our business is more profitable, if we cut the things out that are eating us alive from the inside on time, the things that are tearing us apart financially, and we put those efforts towards the things that are actually impacting our life in a positive way, that are profitable in whatever sense of the word that it is, you now have more of you to pour into the other things. You know, it goes back to assets and liabilities. And right now, there's a lot of liabilities that a lot of us are looking at with our business practice, where it's time to cut those things out so we can invest those efforts and energy and resources into the things that are actually assets. And I'll be the first one to tell you, that's not easy. It is not hard to look at numbers and say, oh, well, this is black and this is red. But it is very hard to say, oof, this is in the red. It's time to cut this one out. That is hard. And you might be thinking, well, you're going a little overboard here, Greg. It doesn't matter if it's 2 hives, 4 hives, 400 hives. But if you consecutively have colonies that's not making honey, your splits are failing, it's costing you nothing but money, they're dying, you're buying bees every single year, like, that gets to be insane. So I would encourage you, everyone listening tonight, spend some time with those uncomfortable results. Even spend a little time with those uncomfortable thoughts and ideas so you can actually detach from it. You can reassess that scenario and those situations, and then you can re-engage with a solid plan where you're putting your best foot forward and you're cutting out the stuff that is doing nothing but tripping you up, as nothing but a toil and nothing but a snare. Guys, if you got some questions for us tonight, we're going to wrap the show up tonight with some questions. Whatever questions you have for us, leave them in all caps, and then we'll get to those. Bruce, I'm going to thank you for your $19.99 super chat, hashtag stream tag, hashtag put God first, hashtag be the lighthouse. Bruce, I really appreciate who you are as a person, who you are as a friend, and both you guys, what we have all done together with the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. I really do appreciate you guys. We have some questions here. I'm going to get those pulled together, and we'll get to those right after this. Hey, are you looking for honey processing equipment that's built to last a lifetime and actually built in the USA? Are you looking for the very best and wax-dipped equipment? Or maybe the beefiest wooden frames and foundation on the market? Check us out at naturesimagefarm.com and let's make Made in America great again. All right, guys, great comments tonight. A lot of great questions. I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. A lot of great folks. We could spend all night just shouting everybody out. But a special shout out to Mr. Harry Hopkins. He says, preach it, Greg. God can't put something in your hands if they are already full. Buddy, I love that. If you haven't seen that video yet, you've got to check out the video. I met Mr. Harry Hopkins not too long ago in West Virginia. He shared his testimony. You talk about a miracle. Does God answer beekeepers' prayers? I would encourage you to check out that video, the testimony of Mr. Harry Hopkins.
Greg, can I say something on that comment as well? You think about wealthy people. A lot of people think that they're kind of stingy and they don't want to ever share anything, or they just kind of grab that money and hold on to it. They stack it away. They never spend it or never share it with people. Same principle with tithing. One thing, if you think about the principle though, most people that I know that are successful, whether they're wealthy or not financially, are givers. They give like if I've heard people say that if you want to have a income come into you, you just need to give something away. And I found that to be true in my life. If I, like, for example, in this, there's no way to monetarily, objectively measure this, but I've just found in my life, for example, sometimes even like with the honey, if I'm having a hard time selling honey, it seems like if I give a couple of bottles away, then it's just weird how that works, right? So, if you just open your hand up a little bit instead of just grabbing onto that money, grabbing onto what you have and not letting it go, if you'll open that hand up to share some of that, then your hand is open, almost like that comment says, to be able to receive more. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Same thing with your heart. Open your heart up to help other people, to share with other people, and you can receive way more than you can ever give.
Well said, Bruce. Absolutely. We got some great, some great comments. Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. We have some awesome questions here too. Let's get right into some of those now. Mr. Sam Mixon asks, I have a problem with one of my hives of bees. I did do an inspection on one hive. I see no blue dot queen that was hatched this spring from my last year's queen. My bee man can't come until Monday. Well, Mr. Sam, I'd say if you know for sure that you had a blue dot queen in there and you don't see a blue dot queen, the question is, that doesn't mean you're necessarily queenless. Do you have eggs and larvae in there? That's what you want to look for. If you just happen to see another queen in there who's not blue anymore, yeah, sure, she could have been superseded. Sometimes, though, those bees can get a little bit chewy, and they can take the paint right off a queen. You asked me how I know. I've had a queen with a specifically clipped wing, and they have torn the number right off her back. So sure they could certainly do that. But the main thing right now, Mr. Sam, is make sure what you really need to know is are there eggs and larvae in there? And that's the thing that I would probably take a little closer look at. Mr. Mike Davis has a question here, $1 million question even. Venting or condensing hives? For I've got double deeps, candy board, quilt box, and top insulation. No vents, only a small entrance. What do you think? I'm in Michigan. Brian, what do you think about that?
That's a winner chicken dinner.
There you go. Bruce, that's probably not something you have to worry a whole lot about, venting or a condensing hive. Not
When
in
you're
Alabama.
Yeah, when you're talking about that kind of stuff, I will defer to the pros, and that's you two up there.
Yeah, I think me and Brian are very similar on that. It's not to say that maybe somehow insulating your hive isn't going to help. But when it comes to venting or a condensing hive, I'm actually somewhere in between that. And it's more, I guess I'm what you would call a minimalist when it comes to those kind of things. I would rather spend the time, money, and effort into making sure that my bees are as clean as they possibly can be and that they have the food that they need. And when those two needs are met, it seems as though those bees are much more resilient than we give them credit for. What I found is, I'm sure some top insulation or some reflectics that might help. Windbreaks, those things help. But what I have found is these things are all percentage buffers of sometimes an overarching, underlying, persisting problem. You get into some parts of the country, though, and maybe all those things aren't enough. If you have colonies that are getting nailed with 30-mile-an-hour winds and it's 20 or 30 degrees out nonstop, that's going to be rough. That's going to be tough on those bees. So I think you've got to just, what I would recommend, Mr. Mike, is, reach out to some folks in your area who are successful overwintering bees and kind of see what they're doing. What Bruce does and I do and Brian do are three still different from each other. And so reaching out to somebody in your specific area, I think, is the move there.
You know, the one thing, just to kind of add to that, I stopped using the upper entrance. It's probably been, I don't know, 2 or so years ago. And I noticed throughout one of the winters, one of my colonies where I had on the little shim that had the little upper entrance on it, they had about propolized that darn thing completely shut. And there was just a little teeny smidge of a hole. So you get thinking, bees know, they know what they want. If you look at Apiary hives, what have they done on those? You have those upper vents, and if they can get to it, what do? They propolize them shut. On the Apiary feeders, where you have all of the little slits through there, where you can let air through, what ends up happening with all of those slits?
Close them up.
One of them is closed up. So if the bees are telling you an Apiary on shims that have an upper entrance on them, if they close that up, I put no upper entrances on now. So it's just, but like what you said, Greg, it's what I do. So you have to be comfortable with what you do. And I mean, his area, it could be completely different. Who knows?
I think if you're in a snow belt and you had your landing board and your entrance be completely engulfed in snow to the point to where there wasn't enough hive warmth to melt a spot out, not so much that I'm worried about CO2, because we use CO2 all the time and knock queens out and bring them back in. But I would be more so worried that the bees don't have a place to go out and go to the bathroom. That's, I think, the bigger thing. So having an upper entrance, maybe, then again, I don't know, when bees get hunkered down, if you're in a part of the country, I don't even know where this even exists anymore. Has to be up in Canada somewhere where you've got enough snow totally entombing a colony for a long enough period of time. I mean, are bees going to go out when it's 15 degrees to go to the bathroom? I mean, they're not going to make it back, or they're going to get snow blinded, or all these other things going on anyways. Yeah. So I would say an upper entrance, maybe if you're worried about snow embankments and things of that nature. But here's the thing: no matter what we say, you can Google it and find a supporting article and a supported peer-reviewed research paper, and you can also find one that completely stands in opposition to that. And just because somebody has a YouTube channel, a podcast, a research paper, or they can share their thoughts, ideas, and opinions on Facebook, doesn't mean that they're an expert, and it doesn't mean that you should just copycat what they do because it sounds like it's a good idea. You got to have some skin in the game, folks. You got to take your own risk and reap your own reward and try some things and see what happens. Sometimes you spend enough time and money and resources doing things that they just flat out don't work. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. It does not work in your context. You got to find the thing that does. So
yeah, that's also why it's so critical to build your operation. Don't just, like, if someone wants to become a commercial beekeeper, don't just go buy 200 colonies and just start. You need to probably start with a few colonies and learn how to grow your bees, learn how to take care of bees, and build into your skill set. You can read books that tell you how to keep some hives alive, but like you said, it varies area to area. It also, you just have to learn the skills to keep them alive. It's just how many people have done that, though? They've gone out and they've thought they had maybe they got 10 colonies through winter, and they thought, I could do this commercially. And then they just go out and they buy a truckload. I mean, probably not a lot of people have done this, but theoretically, if someone goes out and then they buy a semi-truckload of bees, they have no idea how to scale up. They have no idea what kind of time it's going to take. They have no idea the cost and expense of that. So it's best just to grow. I think most of the successful beekeepers have built up over time, organically, and in that way once you have a bunch of colonies and you know how to do it all, you understand all that, then you can go out if you want. I mean, people buy truckloads of bees all the time. Commercial guys kind of back and forth doing the almonds and things like that. But when you're new getting started, it's probably best to grow at a pace that you can keep them alive and grow from there.
I love this.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
By Scott Boring here. Yeah, an amateur built the Ark. Experts built the Titanic. I love that.
That amateur had a little guidance from above, though. So
yes, indeed.
That amateur couldn't have done it on his own if he didn't have a little guidance from.
Stuck with it year after year after year after year. Come on, guys.
That's right.
That's cool.
The greatest architect of all. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see. Okay, so let's got a couple more here. Honeywoods asks, Southeast Ohio, when do I take off buckets and do I put on sugar inside then? Well, I would say what I would recommend for folks with bucket feeders is when your nights are getting into the low 40s, upper 30s, definitely time to get the buckets off, or at least flip them over. It's vacuum. And when you have drastic changes in the temperature, you have drastic changes in expansion and contraction. When that happens, it affects vacuum. When you lose vacuum in a bucket feeder, the liquid just dribbles out of the bucket into the colony. You do not want to have bucket feeders in the on feeding position when you're in the 40s and you're in the 30s. Like right now, this time of year in the fall, you're fine. Your daytimes are up in the 60. At night, you might be, 36, 39, 40, 41. We're getting close to the time to where it's going to be time to pull those off. The most important thing is don't be feeding just for the sake of feeding. And I'm not saying Honeywoods that you are. I'm just saying for folks, look in the colony. If you want to know what's going on, crack the lid. If it's December and January and you're wondering, do I need to put some fondant on the bees? Crack the lid and look. It's much better to crack the lid and take a look than to guess and to do something that's inappropriate or to not do something. In this case with the buckets, just get down there and take a look, see what your feeding scenario is, and then help make a decision on what you need to do, because maybe it's time, depending on what you're doing, maybe you need to get them a gallon of 3-to-1 immediately. And maybe you need to put that in via a frame feeder to get them bulk and to get it quick. Look at your temperatures. That does affect how fast the bees will take it. It can also really cool them off and slow them down inside the colony too. But when the buckets come off, what I prefer to do personally is I like to put the Hive Alive fondant on the colonies at that point in time. I like to make sure I get the fondant on around Thanksgiving or so. They will utilize it a little bit. November going into December, January, February hits, and they really start mellowing down. For most colonies here in East Central Ohio, we find that colonies will go through 3 of the 2-pound packs, and we just put one on right around November. The end of November. The next one goes on right about the very first or mid-January, and then that second one is usually on at the end of January, the first part of February, and they kind of cruise from there into the maple bloom. And so that gives them, it's not emergency food, it's insurance food. We're ensuring that these bees have the feed that they need before they would even come close to running out. So it's on there in a way. And what we have found, I'll briefly mention this, we have found that colonies that have the Hive Alive fondant on are the ones that are typically are the ones that are prolific in the spring, because they've got honey resources left inside of the colony. And what that means is when the maples start to bloom and the bees are bringing in pollen, they still have honey on demand inside of the colony that they can rehydrate and put into use. And we have found that they will actually start to brood up nicely and start to grow, and they just look way healthier when we do that. So the fondant isn't just something that you put on there in hopes that when the bees run out of honey, they utilize it. We get it on ahead of time. And what we have found when we are in looking at the colonies in the wintertime, the bees are actually going up past the supers, feeding on that fondant first when they need it, keeping the honey in the reserve, in the savings account, and then going to that last. And that works out so well for brooding strategy in the spring when there is still some honey left in the hive? Great question.
Yeah, I found last year was the first time. Previously I'd used the Hive Alive for 2 or 3 years just as emergency feeding in the winter time. But last year I just went all in, and I think I did 3 rounds. It was at least 2 rounds of Hive Alive on the colonies, and they came into spring looking stronger than ever before. It just worked tremendously well for me. I think the biggest thing is, my hives aren't always as heavy as they should be going into the winter. Some are, some aren't. But it just I put it on everything, and the bees I had the best year ever last year when it came to production and healthy bees, and so I do think it made a difference. It gave me a little bit of a head start.
Question here from John Kincaid, Buckhorn Creek Apiary. Mr. John asks here, Greg, will you have any knobby specials? You betcha. We are not in a hurry to turn these specials loose so early in the game, but we are really excited about what we're going to offer for knobby this year. So I would just say stay tuned to our socials and to our website when we launch all of that. I will say there's no need to get in a hurry yet on some of those things, especially the items that we're kind of known for. We've made a lot of waves with wax dipped in the industry, and now what you're finding is there are a lot of outfits who are trying to come to the game and bring wax dip to the market because they think it's easy. They think that they can make a quick buck. But folks, I just want to remind you that if it doesn't have our brand, it doesn't meet the mark. There is a massive difference between the type of waxes that are used for wax dipping and processes, and not all wax dipped is created equal. I've got a video coming out that I'm excited to share with you a little bit more about what that actually means, and not just coming from me, but coming from some a leading researcher in the field. So again, if it doesn't have our brand, it doesn't meet the mark. Just keep an eye out for some knobby specials coming soon. Thanks for your question. Mr. David J. Little asks here, or he makes a great comment. It is restructuring the operation to match our capacity. That's a very, very well said. We only have so much capacity, guys. And I think that's what we've sort of been talking about. We only have so much capacity to do all of these things. Hopefully the things that we feel called to do, hopefully there's more emphasis in doing the things that we feel called and led to do than the things that we are pushing or the things that we just want to do. There's a lot of things I want to do in life. There's a lot of things that I need to do in life. There's a lot of things that I need to do that I'm not getting done because too much time and effort is getting placed on things that I want to do. And sometimes the need and the want get in the way of the things that I am led and called to do. And that's you think about that, spend some time with those thoughts. If you're not putting the effort in the thing that you are called and led to do, all the things that you want to do and all the things that you need to do are going to suffer tremendously. That's Ask Me How I Know. Bruce, what do you think?
It's amazing how we flip it upside down sometimes. There's a video from years ago. It's one of my favorite videos that Ian ever did. He calls it the 10-day rule. And it's like a 5 or 6 minute video. It's not very long, I think, if I remember right. But basically in that video, he talks about the amount of time that you have with bees in order to get things done, or else they'll crash, kind of a thing. If you have a task to do, whether it be honey harvest, whether it be mite treatment, whatever it is, you got to get it done within 10 days of what that date is, what your scheduled time frame was, or else you can get in trouble. But if you watch the video, he explains it much better. But the point being that in that video, I think he mentions that, you can grow. Like I could go out and I could, in February or whenever I get some queens, I could split my operation. I can have twice as many bees. But really, if I can't get all the work done, I'm going to end up with however many bees I'm capable of keeping. If I'm a 140 hive beekeeper, no matter how many I grow to, I'm going to end up with 140 colonies. Does that make sense? And so that's kind of what that comment kind of rang true with me, and that you just got to kind of figure out what your capacity is and then be able to customize according to that capacity. And that's an experience thing. We don't really know until we try it. but I kind of think I've pretty much settled into about where I'm at now is about what I can do reasonably comfortably, and still be able to stay sane and keep my job. And I'm getting more efficient. So maybe in the future I can grow a little bit, but I really don't need to try to grow much right now, because it's hard to keep up with it. So that's a great concept, a great comment by him.
Brian, what's coming up this week at Castle Hives in Northeast Ohio?
I'll tell you, I just glanced over and looked at the weather, and I probably am going to spend a couple days flipping buckets and then turning them back and flipping buckets, just because we get down to 34 one of the nights, 36 another night. It'll be getting too close to that freezing mark. And, I don't want to have problems with the buckets, but it's basically just feed, continue to treat. I've been hitting them with OAV every 6-7 days, and I'm probably going to do that for temperature willing. I'll probably do it for a month or so, just to kind of clean them up at the end of the year here. But I probably will like to get that Reflectix on, just so that I get that little bit of insulation on the top there, and that's going to be it. Not wrapping, not doing those insulated inners. I think once I get that done, I mean, it's time for me to quit beekeeping.
That's great. Bruce, what's coming up with Bruce's bees down in Dothan, Alabama, and surrounding areas for the next week?
Yeah, that quitting beekeeping is like James said on here. You guys are saying it up there. Down here, we never really quit, but we do slow down. Weather here is going to be highs in the 70s, one day in the 80s coming up here for the next 8 days or so, give or take 7 to 8 days. Lows in the 50s, pretty much. Maybe one evening in the upper 40s and maybe some in the 60s, and then into next week we're going to be highs in the 60s and lows in the 40s. So it's cooling down a fair amount here. It's just perfect. The weather is just absolutely. Today I was walking out to my truck after work and I was just like, oh man, that's just a perfect weather. It's been just beautiful. And so finally I think we're past the hot part of the year. It's pretty cool. It can warm up in the 70s or 80s, but I think we're done with the 90s and 100s for a while here. As far as what's going on here, I've got 2 more weeks of treating with OAV. I've got a video that'll be dropping here soon in the next few days of me utilizing 3 different Larrabee's vaporizers to treat. I'm going to tell you something. I finally got enough vaporizers, enough batteries to just move almost as fast as I can walk around and treat these colonies. And it just goes really, really fast. Even if you just have one of the Larrabee's vaporizers, is quite quick. But with the number of colonies I have, I finally just invested. Well, I invested in the first couple of vaporizers, and I had a little help with the last one. But then the batteries, I've just bought a bunch of batteries, and man, it's kind of actually fun. I also finally got myself a really good respirator. I've ordered it from Larrabee's as well, and I had an RZ respirator thing I used, and it was kind of a mask that had a filter in it, and it worked pretty good. But this respirator is big, it's bulky, it's uncomfortable. It's not super uncomfortable, but it is really good. You don't smell the vape, you don't smell it at all, and I think it's better to use that. So I would recommend using protective gear if you can. But really, that's what I got going up. Just treating for mites. The next, using OAV a couple more times, and then I'm going to assess after I'm done with that. That'll be a total of 6 weeks. First 3 weeks I did 4 grams per box. Last time I did 4 grams per colony, except the nukes I used 2 grams. I only have 2 or 3 of those left in my operation right now. And then I'm going to do that for 2 more weeks. So a total of 6 weeks, which is a little bit overkill maybe, but I'm not hitting them as often as I might should. And I'm going to test and see if that worked. I hope it did. And if it didn't, I'll do something else. But for now, that's kind of like what I'm working on. And that's pretty much it as far as the YouTube stuff goes. I've backed off a little bit on the frequency, but I am still going to keep doing some things. I'm thinking through a strategy. I need to actually get on that strategy a little bit here in the future. I've just kind of taken a little break from doing a whole lot. And I've noticed I'm way more efficient in the BR when I'm not trying to film everything. So do you mind if before we turn it over to you, Greg, do you mind if I share a verse?
Please.
We were talking earlier kind of about kind of giving of ourselves and being guided by up above. And, I don't know if fear is the word. I don't have a lot of fear really, but I've just I think it's easier sometimes to be comfortable and just not be bold, if that makes sense. And when I say bold, I don't mean be in people's face, but I do mean be willing to defend your beliefs and be willing to stand up for what's right. To me, that's being bold as much as being out there in people's face and aggressively trying to prove people wrong or trying to force your ideas on people. It's more like just be bold and defend, be willing to defend and share is how I look at being bold. But I think it should all be rooted in love. I hope that's why we're doing this podcast. I believe it is why we're doing this stream team thing and why everyone is in the chat here. We love those around us. We're trying to share that love. We talked a little bit about BYU earlier, be humble and hungry. Also, Coach Tataki talks about loving your brother on the team and your brother on the other team, loving people, competing, but then reaching out with love. And that's what the Savior would do. But anyway, it's not a really highly quoted verse, but it's one that I really like. It's in 1 John 4. And it teaches a principle, I think, that can be applied in our lives. He says, we love him because he first loved us. If a man say, I love God and hateth his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother whom he hath seen, how can he love God whom he hath not seen? And this commandment have we from him, that he who loveth God love his brother also. And the first part, that first verse, we love him because he first loved us. I think about the great people in my life. I think about you guys. I think about my dad, great religious leaders, great coaches I've had. And why do I respect them and love them? Because they love me first. And so if the world would think about that a little bit more, as opposed to trying to be right all the time and trying to prove people wrong politically, spiritually, beekeeping wise, and everything, instead of trying to say, I'm right, you're wrong, if we would just reach out and love people first, then we could share and it would be a much better place. And so and who was the great example of that? What did the Savior do? First of all, he went out, he taught, he went to the people who were poor. He went to the people who were just ostracized from society, the people who were hated. That's who he went to first and served, and he loved them. And he loved all of us. And so that's why we love him, right? Because he did that for us. And so I thought that was for some reason, that verse just popped in my head when we were talking about that. So I thought I'd share it.
I love it, Bruce. That's perfect, and it's fitting, just as you said there, not just for all the other life things, but when it comes to beekeeping, for some reason, beekeepers can be some of the greatest folks that you've ever known, and can also be some of the most hateful folks that you've ever known, especially when it comes to the horrific thing of fake book. It's easy to have a little too much finger courage and to lash out of your own frustration or your own insecurity, or act through your own fears and project that onto other folks. And so I love what you said there, Bruce. Absolutely fitting. So thanks for sharing that. To wrap up here, Nature's Image Farm this coming week, we got to make a tough little call here. We've been using nothing but oxalic acid this year, and our mite washes as of today puts us in most yards between 1% and 4%, no higher than 4%. I like to be 1% to 2% going into the wintertime. So we've got some areas that are just outside of that, but just barely, like 11 mites in a wash. Not a super big deal, but we have to roll the dice here and say, what do we do? Do we just keep on with the oxalic acid every 3 to 5 days for 2 or 3 more intervals? Or do we just get in here and put some formic on some of these colonies? That comes with some risk, comes with a lot of expense, but also it's a lot of expense, paying somebody to go out and to treat all the hives every 3 days. It's a lot of effort. Even though oxalic acid is very cost effective and the vaporizers are bought and paid for, there's still the labor, whether it's my time or somebody else's, to go out and do that. So now I'm looking at, do I just go ahead and put a couple of pads of formic on those colonies that I want to get down to 2% and kind of go from there? Got some colonies here, and I might share a little bit more about that this year, that are 100% treatment free. What does that really even mean? Looking forward to talking about that a little bit more too. So we've got some calls to make. We're running out of time. There is no time. It's now or never when it comes to formic, because our temperatures are getting so low. We're in the 50s the next 14 days or so, and it's going to get cooler, and we're past that window. So right now I'm thinking, what can I do right now with these bees to wipe out as many mites as I possibly can? Is it worth the investment, the time, and the aggravation for formic or for oxalic? Got to make that call. Honey was another bust year. The honey we did pull off here for the fall flow is just, it's got a lot of lanternfly in it, which is a unique color and it's a unique texture. It's got a little hint, a unique flavor in it as well. Thankfully, it's has a small influence on our crop, but it's also just a neat and new influence as well. So we'll see kind of how that pans out. But we are now officially past all of the conference and speaking engagements for the rest of the year. We won't be at another conference or speaking engagement the rest of this year. So the next time I think anyone will see us, unless I'm missing something, will be in January down in Louisville, Kentucky. And then we've got a lot of great opportunities next year. We're trying to be more mindful of the time that we spend. And yeah, we can go anywhere. I mean, we can literally go anywhere and be a vendor. And that's great. And it gets our, we continue to market what we do and get, meet folks. But we're trying to be a little bit more mindful of our time. And so opportunities where we're going as a speaker, then we would consider going as a vendor as well. Because I like to get on the pulpit and preach. And I like to use that opportunity to speak and get in front of people to share the whole story of who we are and what we are and why we are. So there's a lot of great opportunities coming up for that. The stream team will be up in the Madison, Wisconsin area early next year for the Midwest Bee Expo. That's going to be an incredible time. We'll leave some links in the descriptions here. But the entire stream team, Bruce, Brian, and myself, will be hosting a very special speaking engagement at the Midwest HoneyBee Expo. And I've got more than a hunch. There will be a lot of other conferences and opportunities for the stream team to come show and do what we do best. And that is to just talk about bees, talk about the life of the beekeeper, and engage with our community. So next week, fellas, whose channel are we on?
Let's go you again, Brian. Get back in order.
Mine.
Is that good? Mine, Brian's.
Be on Brian again. Well, I look forward to that. I know tonight we talked a lot about fear, and there's everything. People are freaking out over the trophy mites, and people have freaked out over tracheal mites, and they've freaked out over, and they are afraid of all these things. And I'm not saying don't be mindful of those things. Don't try to put some kind of a plan together. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is the author of confusion is the same author of fear, and that has no place in true love. I want to encourage you. I won't read the whole thing. Bruce did a great job of bringing scripture into tonight. But I would encourage you guys to pick up the good book, Matthew chapter 6. Start anywhere in there, but right around verse 25 and read all the way through. But what we talked about tonight reminds me of behold the fowls of the air. They sow not, neither do they reap, nor do they gather into barns, but your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much better than they? At the very, very end here, take therefore no thought for tomorrow shall take thought for the things itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, meaning worry about today. Put one foot in front of the other. Take it day by day and just try to do a little better each time. I think that's what we're trying to say here tonight. It's not about quitting, but it's okay to cut things out. Things that are destroying your spiritual life, your financial life, your family life, your business life, your personal life. Cut those things out. You only have so much of you to pour into everything else. Cut the things out that are preventing you from truly fulfilling the direction that you're called to do, the direction that you are led to do. And when you get those things lined up, God first, family, business, and then the bees, life is a beautiful thing. Until next time, I want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be the change you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Tim, what is it about these bugs in a box?
There's no way to shrink it down. There's no words that can describe it. They bring a healing. You either know or you have to know. The smell of a healthy hive, once you smell it, you'll never forget it. But just the ability to get up, take your health in your own hands. See, that's what we have to do. The desire to work these bees and the healing you get from it. It's something about a box full of bugs, you know what I'm saying? It's got a healing to it.
Mike, what is it about those bugs in a box?
Wow, those bugs in a box. There's something about them. It's an insect that can do so much, so many functions it has, so many things it has within itself, and we get to manipulate it. God allowed us to manipulate His creation and do the things we can do. We can make products from it, and it's just exciting to sit there and be able to propagate them and manipulate them and watch them do their thing and explode on you and watch the direct results of what you do. To me, there's nothing like it. It's like almost an addiction when you get to do this and you have this ability given to you to do this. So to me, that's what they are. They're just amazing insects.
Randy, what is it about those bugs in a box?
There's just something magical about those bugs in a box. I don't know a whole lot of beekeepers that don't have a watching chair or some way to sit out and just watch their bees. You just watch them work. It's just something that it's like watching a campfire. It's like sitting around at midnight watching a campfire. You're out there by yourself and it's quiet. But I do the same thing with my bees. They don't know all there is to know. I'll never know all there is to know, but there's so much to learn. It's all so interesting, and it brings together a community, in the way we're doing it with YouTube and with other things. It brings together a community of like-minded people that are, we're all a little off, kind of. It's relaxing, it's fun, and I'll be doing it from now on, just like you, I'm sure.
Bruce, what is it about those bugs in a box?
Man, I don't know. It's addictive from the day I first opened one up. It's therapeutic to me. It's always an adventure, and I just never know what to expect, and it's just very miraculous to me how they do what they do, and I don't know what it is. It's just something. There's an it about it that is just addicting that I just love, and I guess it's a way to interact fully with nature, and it's like opening a gift. Every time you open one, you never know what you're going to expect. It's a surprise, and so many things to learn, so many things to do, and so many things you can do with it, and I just love it. If you ever doubt that there's a God, just open a beehive and look at the bees, because there's just no way that just happened randomly. There's definitely something divine about that, and I just love it.
What is it about these bugs in a box that keeps us coming back, that keeps us working them in the rain, traveling across the country?
And the heat.
And the heat, the snow, the rain.
Snow?
The snow. That's a long story, right, Tim? Oh. There is just something about the bees, and I think the bees are just the conduit to people. Bees are a conduit to a connection that's way greater than ourselves. We can't fully understand what it is, but we're drawn to it. As we've heard folks talk about, there's a healing with the bees, mental, physical, spiritual. It ties people together, it makes those connections, it brings us all together, it fulfills
a part of us, that the result of engaging with the bees, the result of that action, the consequence of that action is joy and happiness. What is it exactly about those bees? I don't think I'll ever know, but I think I'll spend all my days trying to find out.